Jewelry. Our intention is not to criticize jewelry. We can bear the persecution of non-cooperation, but we cannot withstand the cruel, deadly verbal attacks of women. Still, we must say that the sacrifice made to fulfill this desire could achieve greatness if used wisely. Although we have never seen an unattractive woman become beautiful by adorning herself with jewelry, we still accept that jewelry is as essential to beauty as a lamp is to a house. However, we may not realize how much we tarnish our minds, disturb our hearts, and corrupt our souls in the pursuit of physical beauty. In the glow of this lamp, our eyes grow dim. The sparkle and glitter of jewelry cause so much jealousy, envy, rivalry, anxiety, and hopelessness that the mere thought of it sends shivers down our spines. These are not adornments but blemishes. Otherwise, how could it be possible for a newlywed bride to say to her husband, just 3 days after their marriage, "My father has tied me to your fate and thrown me into a well"? Sheetala had gone today to see the newlywed bride of the village's talukdar, Kovar Suresh Singh. She was spellbound in front of the bride, not by her beauty, but by the dazzling glow of her jewelry. And ever since she returned home, she has been tormented with envy. As soon as her husband came home, she burst out at him, and the pent-up resentment poured out in the aforementioned words. Sheetala's husband's name was Vimal Singh. His ancestors were once landlords. This village was entirely under their control. But now, their household had fallen into decay. Suresh Singh's father was skilled in managing the zamindari, landlordship, and Vimal Singh's entire estate eventually fell into his hands. Vimal didn't even have a horse for transportation, and they struggled to get 2 meals a day. On the other hand, Suresh had an elephant, a car, and several horses. Several people were always at his door. Despite such disparity, they maintained brotherly relations, attending each other's weddings, ceremonies, and celebrations. Suresh loved education and had gone to Europe after completing his higher education in India. Contrary to everyone's fears, he returned as a staunch devotee of Aryan culture. The materialistic pleasures and unhuman arrogance of the West had opened his eyes. Before going to Europe, he had refused to marry despite his family's insistence. He couldn't love a girl without knowing her beforehand. But after returning from Europe, his thoughts on marriage changed significantly. He married the very girl he had previously refused, without knowing her character or values. Now, he considered marriage not as a bond of love but as a bond of duty. It was to see this fortunate bride that Sheetala, along with her mother-in-law, went to Suresh's house today. She was deeply hurt after seeing the magnificence of the bride's jewelry. Vimal, feeling distressed, said, "You should have told your parents to marry you off to Suresh. He could have adorned you with jewelry." Sheetala, "Why are you taunting me?" Vimal, "I'm not taunting you, just stating the truth. They shouldn't have married someone as beautiful as you to me." Sheetala, "You aren't even ashamed, instead, you add more taunts." Vimal, "It's not in my hands. I haven't studied enough to get a high-paying job." Sheetala, "Why don't you say that you don't love me? If you did, gold would start raining down." Vimal, "Do you love jewelry that much?" Sheetala, "Everyone does. So do I." Vimal, "Do you consider yourself unlucky?" Sheetala, "I am unlucky, there's no need to consider it. Otherwise, why would I feel envious when I see others?" Vimal, "If I get you some jewelry, will you consider yourself fortunate?" Sheetala, irritated, "You are asking as if a jeweler is sitting at the door." Vimal, "No, I am serious. I'll get it for you. But you'll have to be patient for some time. A capable man might take someone's life if hurt, but an incapable man risks his own." Vimal Singh decided to leave the house. He resolved that he would either load her with jewelry or burden her with widowhood. Either she would wear jewelry, or she would long for even a vermilion mark on her forehead. He spent the entire day deep in thought. He had tried to satisfy Sheetala with love, but today he realized that a woman's heart cannot be bound by the bond of love alone, it can only be bound by the bond of gold. As nightfall approached, he set out from the house without looking back. When disillusionment arises from despair, it becomes unwavering. In the darkness, who dares to stray even an inch from the path? Vimal had no education or skills. He had only his hard work and willingness to make sacrifices to rely on. First, he went to Calcutta. For some time, he worked as a guard for a wealthy merchant there. When he heard that wages were good in Rangoon, he moved there and began working at the port, loading and unloading goods. Due to hard work, poor diet, and the harsh climate, he fell ill. His body became weak, his face lost its luster, yet he was still the most diligent laborer at the port. The other laborers were just that, laborers, but he was an ascetic in his work. Whatever he had resolved in his mind, achieving it became his sole purpose in life. He did not send any news back home. He reasoned with himself, who at home cares about me? Who would consider me worth anything compared to jewelry? His mind could not grasp the concept that despite a longing for jewelry, love could still be maintained. The other laborers would start their day with sweets, smoke marijuana, and tobacco all day, and if they had free time, they would stroll around the market. Many of them were fond of drinking. They earned rupees instead of pennies and spent rupees as if they were pennies. Some of them didn't even have proper clothes to wear. But Vimal was one of the few who lived a disciplined life, with a purpose beyond just eating and drinking and dying. In a short time, he saved a little money. With wealth came influence over the other laborers. Almost everyone knew that Vimal was a noble Thakur by birth. They all addressed him as Thakur. Discipline and conduct are the keys to gaining respect. Vimal became the leader and benefactor of the laborers. 3 years had passed since Vimal started working in Rangoon. It was evening, and he was sitting by the seaside, talking with a few other laborers. One of the laborers said, "All the women here are heartless. Poor Jingor lived with that Burmese woman for 10 years. No one could have loved his own wife as much as he loved her. He trusted her so much that he gave her all his earnings. They had 3 children. Just yesterday, they were eating and sleeping together. There was no fight, no argument, no issue at all. But in the night, the woman quietly left, leaving the children behind. Poor Jingur is sitting there crying. The biggest problem is the youngest child, who is only 6 months old. How will he survive? Only God knows." Vimal Singh said solemnly, "Did he get jewelry made for her or not?" Labor. All the money was in her hands. If she wanted to get jewelry made, who could stop her? Another laborer said, "She was adorned with jewelry. Wherever she went, you could hear the jingling of her bangles." Vimal, when even jewelry couldn't keep her from being heartless, it just goes to show that this whole community is unfaithful. Just then, a man approached Vimal and said, "Chaudhary, I just met a policeman. He was asking for your name, village, and father's name. Is there a Babu Suresh Singh?" Vimal, with a hint of suspicion, replied, "Yes, there is. He's the landlord of my village and a brother in our community. Man, he has issued a notice at the police station, offering a reward of 1000 rupees for anyone who finds you." Vimal, so, you told the policeman everything correctly? Man, Chaudhary, do you think I'm a fool? I figured something was fishy. Otherwise, why would anyone spend so much money? I told him your name is not Vimal Singh, but Jasoda Pandey. I gave your father's name as Sukhu and your home district as Jhansi. He then asked how long you've been here. I said about 10 years. Then he left, deep in thought. Do you have some enmity with Suresh Babu, Chaudhary? Vimal, I had no enmity, but who knows, maybe his intentions have turned bad. He might be trying to accuse me of some crime to grab my land. You did well to mislead the policeman. Man, he offered me 50 rupees if I gave him accurate information. I thought to myself, you are going to pocket 1000 rupees and only give me 50. So I sent him away with a scolding. Another laborer, but if he had offered you 200 rupees, you would have given him everything, right? Ha, you're such a miser. Man, ashamed. Even if he had offered me 2000 rupees, I wouldn't have told him. Don't think I'm the kind to betray anyone. Test me whenever you like. While the laborers continued their debate, Vimal went to lie down in his room. He thought to himself, what should I do now? If someone as noble as Suresh has turned against me, who can I trust? No, I can't continue without going home. If I don't go soon, I'll be left with nothing. If I had stayed for another 2 years, I would have saved 5000 rupees. Sheetala's desires could have been partially fulfilled. But now I only have about 3000 rupees. That won't be enough to fulfill her wishes. Well, I should go now. I'll return in 6 months. At least I'll save my property. No, There's no need to stay for 6 months. It will take a month just to travel there and back. I'll only stay at home for 15 days. Who cares whether I stay or leave, live or die? All they care about is jewelry. Resolving this in his mind, Vimal left Rangoon 3 days later. The world says that appearance is nothing compared to character. Our moral teachers say the same. But how misleading this notion is in reality. Konwar Suresh Singh's newlywed bride, Mangala Kumari, was skilled in household work, willing to give her life at her husband's command, extremely thoughtful, sweet-spoken, and deeply religious. However, because she was not beautiful, she was like a thorn in her husband's eyes. Suresh Singh would often get irritated with her but would apologize within an hour, overcome by guilt. Yet the same cycle would start again the next day. The problem was that his behavior was not like that of other wealthy men. He wanted to find joy, happiness, peace, and trust, as well as fulfill almost all his earthly and spiritual purposes in his married life. But being deprived of marital happiness made his entire life feel dull, tasteless, and stifled. The result was that Mangala lost confidence in herself. She was afraid to do anything on her own, fearing that her husband would be displeased. To keep him happy, she would hide her mistakes, make excuses, and tell lies. She would try to protect herself by blaming the servants. In her efforts to please her husband, she neglected her virtues and her soul, but instead of rising in his eyes, she continued to fall. She would dress up in new adornments every day but drifted further away from her goal. Her heart ached for one sweet smile from her husband, for one kind word from his lips. A woman who lacks beauty is not content with mere crumbs. She desires her husband's complete, undivided love, perhaps even more than a beautiful woman does, because she must make extraordinary efforts and sacrifices to earn it. Mangala was failing in this effort and becoming more tormented by the day. Gradually, she began to lose faith in her husband. She reasoned that she should treat him the same way he treated her without regard for love. A man who worships only beauty is not worthy of love or devotion. This retaliation only made the situation more complicated. But Mangala's sorrow wasn't just due to her own lack of beauty. Sheetala's unparalleled charm was also a barrier to her desires. In fact, it was the frost that froze her hopes. Mangala may not have been beautiful, but she was devoted to her husband. When someone loves us, it's hard to turn away from them. The power of love is immense. But Sheetala's image blocked Mangala's way to Suresh's heart, no matter how many disguises she tried. Suresh tried to remove this image from his heart, to force it out, but the power of beauty is as difficult to resist as the power of wealth. The day Sheetala came to visit Mangala at home, Suresh's eyes caught a glimpse of her enchanting beauty. That glimpse was like a fleeting moment that captured his entire heart, seizing control over it. In solitude, Suresh would compare Mangala's image with Sheetala's, trying to determine what set them apart. Why did one draw him in while the other repelled him? But this attraction was merely the appreciation of a painter or poet. It was pure and free from lust. That image was just a source of entertainment for him. He would reason with himself, resolving to resist his temptation. But his resolve would crumble in Mangala's presence. He would keenly observe the subtle changes in Mangala's demeanor, but, like a person paralyzed by a stroke, he was helpless to stop the situation from deteriorating. The outcome was too terrifying to even consider. But when Mangala began to criticize him sharply over trivial matters, treating him with increasing disrespect, his already waning affection for her disappeared completely. He stopped coming home altogether. One evening, the weather was scorching. Even fanning the air made the heat feel more intense. No one ventured to the gardens for a stroll. All the energy seemed to have drained away with the sweat. Wherever people were, they were lying motionless as if dead. People's voices, parched by the heat, had become harsh, like drums baked in the sun. Even in casual conversation, people became irritable, like trees in a forest that catch fire from the slightest friction. Suresh Singh would pace back and forth for a few steps, then collapse, gasping for breath. He scolded the servants for not sprinkling water quickly enough. Suddenly, he heard singing from inside. Startled, then angry, the sweet music grated on his ears. It seemed like an ill-timed wedding procession. He was suffocating from the heat, and these people had the audacity to sing. Mangala must have called them, no doubt. People mistakenly say that love is the foundation of a woman's life. The truth is, their lives revolve around the same needs as all living beings: food, sleep, music, and pleasure. He listened to the singing for an hour. Would this song ever end? They were all screaming their lungs out for no reason. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He entered the women's quarters and said, "What is this racket you've made? Is this the time for singing and dancing? It's unbearable to sit outside." A silence fell over the room, like children caught misbehaving when their teacher arrives. Everyone lowered their heads and shrank back. Mangala immediately got up and went to the room across from him. She called her husband and whispered softly, "Why are you so angry? I don't want to hear any singing right now. Who is forcing you to listen? Do you have control over my ears too? Useless noise. What does that have to do with you? I won't allow this commotion in my house. Then do I have another home?" Instead of answering, Suresh Singh said, "Tell them to leave and come back another time." Mangala, "Just because you don't like them being here?" Suresh, "Yes, exactly." Mangala, "Do you always do what pleases me? Your friends come here, and their laughter can be heard inside. Do I ever tell you to stop them from coming? Why do you interfere with my affairs?" Suresh, becoming agitated, said, "Because I am the master of this house." Mangala, "You may be the master of the outside, but here, I have authority." Suresh, "Why are you arguing for no reason? What will you gain by provoking me?" Mangala stood silently for a moment. She was analyzing her husband's hidden emotions. Then she said, "Fine. If I have no authority in this house, I won't stay. I was under a misconception until now. Today, you've cleared that up for me. I never had any authority over this house. A woman who has no place in her husband's heart has no right to his property either." Suresh, embarrassed, said, "Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill? That's not what I meant. You are misunderstanding." Mangala, "The truth comes out of a person's mouth naturally. Then we become cautious and try to hide our true feelings." Suresh felt guilty about his harshness, but fearing that the more he tried to placate her, the more she would lash out at him, he left her there and went outside. The next morning, a cool breeze was blowing. Suresh was lying in a daze, dreaming that Mangala was walking away from him. He suddenly woke up with a start. He saw Mangala standing at the door. The household servants were wiping their eyes with their saris. Several servants were standing around, all with tearful eyes and somber faces, as if the bride were departing. Suresh understood that Mangala had taken his words to heart, but he made no effort to get up, ask, placate, or explain. He thought, "She's insulting me, humiliating me. Let her go wherever she wants. I have nothing to do with her." He remained lying there like a lifeless statue as Mangala walked away without even glancing back. Mangala was walking on foot. This was not an ordinary thing for the wife of a major landlord. No one dared to say anything to her. Men moved aside to make way for her. Women stood at their doorsteps, watching her with sorrowful curiosity, and their eyes seemed to say, "Oh, cruel man. Couldn't you at least have arranged a palanquin for her?" Leaving this village, Mangala reached the village where Sheetala lived. As soon as Sheetala heard, she came out to the door and said to Mangala, "Sister, come inside and rest for a while." When Mangala went inside, she saw that the house was crumbling in places. In the courtyard, an elderly woman lay on a cot. Signs of poverty were evident everywhere. Sheetala asked, "What happened?" Mangala, "Whatever was destined." Sheetala, "Did Kumbarji say something to you?" Mangala, "Even if he didn't say anything, the thoughts of the heart don't remain hidden." Sheetala, "Oh dear, has it come to this? Misery in its final stage knows no shame." Mangala said, "I could have stayed there if I wanted to. I could have lived out my life in that house. But where there is no love, no respect, I can no longer stay." Sheetala, "Where is your parental home?" Mangala, "How can I return to my parental home with such disgrace?" Sheetala, "Then where will you go?" Mangala, "To the court of God. I will ask why he didn't give me beauty. Why did he make me unattractive? Sister, there is no greater misfortune for a woman than to be devoid of beauty. Perhaps the demons from past lives are reborn as ugly women. Beauty brings love, and there is nothing more precious than love." Saying this, Mangala got up to leave. Sheetala did not stop her, she thought, what will I feed her? There's no hope of lighting the stove today. After Mangla left, Sheetala sat for a long time, thinking, how unfortunate I am. The love she is losing her life for, I have trampled underfoot. Did she lack any jewelry? Did these magnificent jewels bring her happiness? She rejected them. And for the same jewelry, I lost everything. Oh, who knows where Vimal Singh, is, in which direction? Sheetala had cursed her desires, her greed, countless times. After seeing Mangla's condition, she developed a deep aversion to jewelry. 2 years had passed since Vimal had left home. Sheetala was now plagued by various worries about him. Guilt and remorse smoldered within her day and night. The small landlords in the countryside often ruled through intimidation and force. Vimal's farming was done through forced labor. After he left, all the fields lay fallow. No one was willing to plough the land. Some feared that if Vimal Singh suddenly returned, they would be left with nothing after working on a sharecropping basis. The tenants didn't pay their rent. Sheetala borrowed money from a moneylender to get by. The same situation persisted the following year. This time, the moneylender refused to lend any money. Sheetala's jewelry was pawned off. By the end of the second year, all the household savings were gone. They began to go hungry. The family included her elderly mother-in-law, her younger brother-in-law, her sister-in-law, and herself 4 mouths to feed. Relatives also came to visit occasionally. On top of that, there was an additional misfortune. A legal case arose in her parental home. Her father and elder brother were embroiled in it. Her 2 younger brothers, a sister, and her mother, all 4 of them also came to stay with her. The household was already struggling, and now it was completely overwhelmed. Quarrels began early in the morning. The mother-in-law and the visiting mother-in-law would get into fights, while the brothers-in-law would argue with each other. Sometimes, due to a lack of food, there would be no meal at all. Even when food was prepared, the bickering would prevent them from eating in peace. The children would sneak into other people's fields to steal sugarcane and peas. The elderly women would visit other houses to complain and tell tales of woe. In the absence of a man, the in-laws from the wife's side tend to dominate the household. In this domestic battle, the wife's family often holds the upper hand. If by some means food was brought into the house, who would grind the flour? Sheetala's mother would say, I've only come for a few days, why should I grind? Her mother-in-law would retort, they leap at the chance to eat like cats, but why does it tire them out when it's time to grind? Helpless, Sheetala would have to grind the flour alone. During meals, there would be such a commotion that the neighbors would get fed up and come over. Sheetala would alternately beg her mother and her mother-in-law for peace, but both would brush her off. Her mother would say, you've dragged us here just to humiliate us. Her mother-in-law would say, you've brought a co-wife to sit on my chest, and now you are making excuses. In this intense conflict, Sheetala forgot her sorrow of separation. All her dreadful suspicions were soothed by the fire of discord. Her only concern now was how to escape this situation. Her mother and mother-in-law both had no refuge except the afterlife, but Lord Yama didn't seem eager to welcome them. She devised countless plans, but like a traveler who walks all day only to find himself back at his doorstep, her mind was paralyzed by hopelessness. She searched everywhere for a place of refuge, but found none. One day, in this state of despair, she stood at the door. In times of trouble, anxiety, and waiting, one grows fond of the door. Suddenly, she saw Babu Suresh Singh riding by on a horse. His eyes met hers. She quickly retreated and closed the door. Konwar Sahib rode on. Sheetala regretted that he had seen her. The scarf on her head was torn, and it was patched all over. What must he be thinking about me? Konwar Sahib had learned from the villagers about the hardships faced by Vimal Singh's family. He wanted to help them discreetly. But the moment he saw Sheetala, he felt so embarrassed that he couldn't stop at the door for even a moment. It had been 3 months since Mangla had left, and today was the first time he had stepped out of the house. He had stopped going out of shame. There was no doubt that Konwar Sahib secretly admired Sheetala's beauty. After Mangla left, a strange desire arose in his heart. Could this beautiful woman somehow be mine? There had been no news of Vimal for a long time. It was quite possible that he was no longer alive. But he kept suppressing this wicked thought. Even after hearing about Sheetala's plight, he was afraid to help her. What if this desire was trying to deceive him by disguising itself as charity? Eventually, the deceptive play of desire ensnared him. He went to Sheetala's house to inquire about her well-being. He reasoned with himself, how unjust it is that a helpless woman is in such distress, and I don't even ask about her? But after returning from there, the ropes of his intellect and wisdom snapped, and his boat began to sink into the vast ocean of desire and lust. Ah, this enchanting beauty! This unparalleled loveliness! In a moment of madness, he began to ramble, I offer my life and soul to you. Let the world laugh, I don't care. Even if it's a great sin, I don't mind. I won't deprive myself of this heavenly pleasure. She cannot escape from me. I will lay my heart at her feet. Vimal is dead. If he's not, he soon will be. What is sin? It's nothing. How soft, how blooming, how delicate is that lotus? What are her lips? Suddenly, he stopped, as if remembering something forgotten. There is a hidden intelligence within the human mind. Just as retreating soldiers in battle are sometimes rallied by reinforcements from an unknown source, this hidden intelligence alerted Suresh. He regained his composure. His eyes filled with shame. He stood there for several minutes, like a condemned prisoner, deeply troubled. Then he triumphantly declared, how simple it is. And I will slay this elephant of desire not with a lion, but with an ant. All I have to do is call Sheetala, sister, and all these desires will be silenced. Sheetala, sister, I am your brother. At that very moment, he wrote a letter to Sheetala, saying, Sister, you endured so much hardship without informing me. I am not a stranger. I am saddened by this. Well, if God wills, you will not suffer anymore. With this letter, he sent some food, grains and money. Sheetala replied, Brother, forgive me. As long as I live, I will sing your praises. You have saved my sinking boat. Months passed. It was evening. Sheetala was feeding her pet Maina bird. Suresh had brought it from Nepal just for her. Just then, Suresh arrived and sat down in the courtyard. Sheetala asked, Where have you been, brother? Suresh, I just came from the police station. We got some information. There was some news from Rangoon, but it turned out to be about someone else. What should I do? Should I increase the reward? Sheetala, if you have money to spare, then burn it. If it's meant to be, he'll come on his own. Suresh, can I ask you something? Will you tell me the truth? What was the argument between you two about? Sheetala, nothing. I just asked him to get me some jewelry. He said, What do I have? I replied, Then why did you marry me? That's all. And just like that, he took offense. Just then, Sheetala's mother-in-law arrived. Suresh had taken Sheetala's mother and brothers back to their home, so the house was now peaceful. The mother-in-law, who had overheard their conversation, said in a harsh voice, Son, there's no need to hide anything from you. This queen is like a rose to look at, but inside, she's all thorns. She didn't care about Vimal at all. Poor guy was devoted to her, but she never showed him a kind face. She has no love in her heart. In the end, she drove him out of the country. Sheetala, angrily, said, Do you think he's the only man who's gone abroad to earn money? Traveling abroad is a man's job. Suresh, in Europe, wealth is the only connection between men and women. If my sister had been born in Europe, she would have been adorned with diamonds and jewels. Sheetala, now you should pray to God that if he gives you beauty, let you be born in Europe. Sheetala, distressed, said, Those who are destined for it are adorned with gold even here. Not everyone is as unlucky as I am. Suresh Singh felt that Sheetala's face had grown pale. She was yearning for jewelry in her separation from her husband. He said, All right, I'll get you some jewelry made. This sentence was spoken in a somewhat mocking tone, but Sheetala's eyes filled with tears of joy, and her voice choked with emotion. The image of Mangla's jewel-studded ornaments appeared before her mind's eye. She looked at Suresh with grateful eyes. She didn't say anything, but her entire being was saying, I am yours. The cuckoo on the mango branches, the fish playing in the cool, clear water, and the fawn leaping in the wide green fields were not as happy as Sheetala was while wearing Mangla's jewelry. Her feet hardly touched the ground, she seemed to be floating in the sky. She spent the whole day standing in front of the mirror, sometimes arranging her hair, sometimes applying kohl to her eyes. The fog had lifted, and the clear, bright moonlight had emerged. She did not lift a finger in the house. A strange pride had taken over her nature. But what is adornment? It is the loud call that awakens dormant desires, the mantra of stimulation. When Sheetala was fully adorned from head to toe, she felt an overwhelming desire for someone to see her. She would stand at the door. The praise of the village women did not satisfy her. She considered the village men to be devoid of any appreciation for beauty. So, she would call for Suresh Singh. Previously, he used to visit once a day. Now, despite Sheetala's many requests, he did not come. It was past midnight. The lamps in the houses had gone out. A lamp was still burning in Sheetala's house. She had asked for jasmine flowers from Kunwar's garden and was sitting there, stringing a garland not for herself, but for Suresh. What else could she offer in return for his kindness? Suddenly, the dogs began barking, and within moments, Vimal Singh entered the house. He was carrying a trunk in one hand and a bundle in the other. His body was weak, his clothes were dirty, his beard had grown long, and his face was pale, like a prisoner just released from jail. Seeing the light in the room, he headed towards Sheetala's room. The myna bird began fluttering in its cage. Sheetala, startled, looked up. Frightened, she asked, "Who is it?" Then she recognized him and immediately covered the flowers with a cloth. She stood up and, bowing her head, asked, "Did you think of me so soon?" Vimal did not reply. He kept staring at Sheetala, sometimes at her, and sometimes at the house, as if he had entered a new world. This was not the half-bloomed flower whose petals had shriveled in the unfavorable conditions. This was a fully blossomed flower, sparkling with dewdrops and swaying in the breeze. Vimal had always been enchanted by her beauty, but this radiance was like a flame that burned his heart and stung his eyes. These ornaments, these clothes, this adornment. His head began to spin. He sat down on the floor. He felt ashamed to sit in front of this sunflower. Sheetala was still standing there, stunned. She didn't rush to bring water, she didn't wash her husband's feet, she didn't even fan him. She was in a daze. The beautiful garden of her imagination had been frostbitten. In reality, she felt a deep disgust towards this dirty, half-naked man. This was not the landlord Vimal, he had become a laborer. Hard labor leaves its mark on the face. Even in fine clothes, a laborer remains a laborer. Suddenly, Vimal's mother woke up. When she entered Sheetala's room and saw Vimal, she was overcome with maternal affection and embraced him. Vimal placed his head on her feet. Hot tears streamed down his face. His mother was overjoyed. She was speechless with emotion. After a moment, Vimal said, "Mother?" His voice conveyed his question. His mother, understanding his question, said, "No, son, that's not it." Vimal, what am I seeing? Mother, that's just her nature, what can anyone do? Vimal, why did Suresh put out a description of me? Mother, he wanted to find you. If he hadn't shown mercy, you wouldn't have found anyone alive in this house today. Vimal, that would have been better. Sheetala taunted him, "You had already killed everyone in your mind. Didn't you lay out a bed of roses for us?" Vimal, I see the bed of roses laid out now. Sheetala, are you the master of anyone's destiny? Vimal, trembling with anger, stood up and said, "Mother, take me away from here. I don't want to see this witch's face. My eyes are filled with blood. I performed penance for 3 years for this family curse, and yet I couldn't attain it." Saying this, he left the room and lay down in his mother's room. His mother immediately washed his face, hands, and feet. She lit the stove and began frying puris while narrating the story of the family's hardships. The anger Vimal felt towards Suresh began to subside, but his mental agony turned into physical illness. He developed a high fever. The exhaustion from the long journey, the hardships of years of hard work and penance, and now this mental torment became unbearable. He lay unconscious all night. His mother sat by his side, fanning him and crying. The next day, he was still unconscious. Sheetala didn't come to see him even once. What have they given me that I should endure their arrogance? Here it's, as the lady lives, so shall she be treated? I don't owe anyone a single penny. They left with such bravado, so what did they bring back? By evening, Suresh had heard the news and rushed over. Today, after 2 months, he set foot in that house. Vimal opened his eyes and recognized him. Tears streamed down his face. Compassion radiated from Suresh's face. Vimal regretted the unfounded suspicions he had harbored about him. As soon as Sheetala heard that Suresh Singh had arrived, she went to the mirror, loosened her hair, and, looking like a statue of sorrow, entered Vimal's room. A moment ago, Vimal's eyes had been closed, and he lay unconscious. But as soon as Sheetala entered, his eyes opened. Glaring at her with fiery eyes, he said, "You just arrived? Come back on the third day. You'll have another meeting with Kumbar Sahib then." Sheetala turned on her heel and left. Suresh was drenched in cold water. He thought to himself, how beautiful she is, but how poisonous. There's nothing in her heart but the desire for adornment. The illness worsened. Suresh called for doctors, but the god of death listened to no one. His heart is made of stone and cannot be softened by any means. You could offer your heart, you could shed a river of tears, but he will not show mercy. His job is to destroy flourishing homes and dry up thriving fields. And how delightfully he goes about his cruelty? He constantly changes his form. Sometimes he becomes lightning, sometimes a garland of flowers, sometimes a lion, and sometimes a jackal. Sometimes he appears as fire, and sometimes as water. On the third night, Vimal's mental and physical suffering came to an end. A thief never steals during the day. Yama's messengers usually arrive at night when everyone is asleep, and they steal the jewel of life. The flowers of the sky were wilting. The trees stood still, bowed in sorrow. Night is the outward expression of mourning. Night is the playground of death. It was at this time that the cries of grief could be heard from Vimal's house, cries that the god of death is eager to hear. Sheetala was startled and hurried to the deathbed. She looked at the lifeless body, and in fear, took a step back. She felt as if Vimal Singh was staring at her with piercing eyes. In the extinguished lamp, she saw a terrifying light. Unable to bear the fear, she left the room. As she was leaving, she ran into Suresh Singh. In a trembling voice, she said, "I'm scared here." She wanted to fall at his feet and cry, but he stepped aside. When a traveler realizes he has lost his way, he hastens to get back on the right path. He scolds himself for being so careless. Suresh, too, was now desperate to return to the path of peace. He began to recall Mangla's loving care. The feeling of true devotion to beauty arose in his heart. How much love, how much sacrifice, how much forgiveness was in her. Remembering her unparalleled devotion to her husband, he sometimes felt anguished. "Oh, I have committed a grave injustice. I did not honor such a pure gem. I lay here like a lifeless statue, and Lakshmi left the house before my very eyes." Suresh knew what Mangla had said to Sheetala before leaving, but he couldn't believe it. Mangla was calm by nature, she couldn't have acted so recklessly. She had forgiveness in her heart, she couldn't have harbored such animosity. His heart told him that she was alive and well. He wrote several letters to her family, but what was there except sarcasm and harsh words? Finally, he wrote, "Now I will personally search for that gem. Either I will bring her back, or I will drown myself in shame." The reply came, "Very well, go ahead, but pass through here on your way. Someone from here will accompany you." Suresh Singh saw a glimmer of hope in these words. He left immediately, without taking anyone with him. No one in his in-laws' home welcomed him with love. Everyone's faces were sullen. His father-in-law gave him a long lecture on the duties of a husband. At night, after finishing his meal, as he lay down to rest, his younger sister-in-law came and sat beside him, smiling, and said, "Brother-in-law, if a beautiful woman abandons her unattractive husband and humiliates him, what would you call her?" Suresh, in a serious tone, "A vile woman." Sister-in-law, "And if a man abandons his unattractive wife?" Suresh, "A beast." Sister-in-law, "And if the man is learned?" Suresh, "A demon." Sister-in-law, laughing, "Then I'm leaving. I'm afraid of you." Suresh, "Demons can repent." Sister-in-law, "But the repentance must be sincere." Suresh, "Only the all-knowing can determine that." Sister-in-law, "If it's sincere, it will surely bear fruit. But bring sister back when you return. Suresh's hope wavered. Pleading, he said, Prabha, for God's sake, have mercy on me. I am very unhappy. Not a day has gone by in the past year when I haven't cried myself to sleep. Prabha got up and said, what's done is done. I am leaving now, take care. A moment later, Mangla's mother came and sat beside him, saying, Son, you've studied a lot, you've travelled far and wide, haven't you seen any medicine to make one beautiful? Suresh humbly replied, Mother, please don't embarrass me any further. Mother, you've taken my daughter's life. What right do I have to embarrass you? I feel like telling you off so badly that you'll remember it forever, but you're my guest, how can I scold you? Rest now. Suresh lay there, tossing and turning between hope and fear, when suddenly someone at the door whispered, Why don't you go? He's awake. Someone else replied, I'm ashamed. Suresh recognized the voice. A thirsty man had found water. A moment later, Mangla stood before him, head bowed. Suresh noticed a unique expression on her face, as if a sick person had just recovered. Her appearance was the same, but her eyes were different.